I'm going to be comparing the War of the Worlds franchise to the Zombieland franchise. In the case of War of the Worlds, this started off with the book written by H.G. Wells, which I actually have read, where Zombieland started off with the first movie. When it comes to the highest score for each franchise, in the case of Zombieland, that first movie has the highest score of 89%. When you look at War of the Worlds, the highest score is actually also an 89% for the 1953 movie, so it's actually a tie here. Now, when we look at the lowest score for each franchise, in the case of War of the Worlds, lowest score is a 9% for War of the Worlds The Next Wave, which is actually a sequel put out by Asylum to the movie H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, a mockbuster put out by Asylum. In the case of Zombieland, the lowest score is 68% for Zombieland Double Tap. That's pretty impressive right there, that even though Double Tap's score is not as high as Zombieland, it's still fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a really good sign. Zombieland wins here. Then when you look at average score, with War of the Worlds you have an average of 52. With Zombieland you have an average of 78. So Zombieland wins here. Then when you look at gap between lowest and highest score, in the case of War of the Worlds, pretty big gap, 80%. In the case of Zombieland, smaller gap, only 21%. Zombieland wins here, so it actually is in the lead right now, 3-0, so it is going to win this debate no matter my personal opinion. But let's look at it now. Which franchise do I prefer? And this one actually is not hard at all. It's very obvious to me immediately which franchise is better. Of course, Zombieland is better. It's more consistent. Part of that is because you don't have direct-to-video Zombieland movies. Now, to be clear, I like the 2005 movie from Steven Spielberg. Is it one of Spielberg's best movies? Is it up there with his classics? No, of course not, but does that make the movie bad? No, absolutely not. It's still, I would say, a good, solid movie. Are there issues here? Sure, I will say that, because the son can get pretty annoying when he's wanting to join the military, when he's being so unreasonable and is just not listening at all. It is frustrating, but I think the voiceover narration from Morgan Freeman is effective. I like the way this movie looks. I like the action. I like the way that the tripods and the actual individual aliens themselves look. I think the story here is simple, straightforward. It's not anything really out of the ordinary for an alien invasion movie. It's pretty standard stuff, but it works. It's good enough. And you have Tom Cruise's character actually getting the kids by the end to their family. I do like how at the beginning we see that other people in his life see Ray as this just pretty irresponsible guy that isn't really good at taking care of his kids, but then he actually shows himself to be responsible by the time the movie is over. I like the way that the aliens end up being defeated. It serves pretty well, I would say, as a subversion that, oh, actually the aliens just lost because they were killed off as a result of Earth's bacteria. That's interesting. I would say that you don't have humans flat out just beating the aliens in a fight. No, it's just that the humans can take down the tripods after the aliens have gotten sick. I like the 1953 version of the story. I mean, do the visuals always hold up? No, but I think the story here is compelling and engaging. I like the acting. I still think it's definitely a good movie. I haven't seen the other War of the Worlds movies. It seems to me like both War of the Worlds, The True Story, which came out in 2012, as well as H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, are perfectly fine. Perfectly good enough without being fantastic. When it comes to Zombieland, I like how both these movies, there's quite a good amount of energy to them. I like there's visual onomatopoeia here, where you see on the screen all the rules that our main guy Columbus, played by Jesse Eisenberg, follows. And I think it's funny in Zombieland Double Tap when you have these two guys come in that are so similar to Columbus and Tallahassee. They're basically the same people. The doppelganger version of Columbus just uses commandments rather than rules. I think that's pretty interesting. And I like how these Zombieland movies have a certain amount of optimism and hopefulness for them, despite the fact that there's a zombie apocalypse going on. Because it's about these people that find happiness in the midst of something this awful. I like how it's about these survivors that find family through each other in the midst of this horrible apocalyptic scenario where so many people have been killed. It's dark, 100%, but these survivors still find reason to actually be happy in the midst of something that terrible. I think it's funny in the second movie that our main characters are at the White House. I like how in the second movie, by the time it's over, things have gotten even better for Tallahassee, Columbus, and our two ladies that are with them. They've actually managed to find other survivors. They found this community that actually is doing really well. It's pretty heartwarming, and I like the way that both Zombieland movies look. The action is fun, the characters are entertaining, especially Tallahassee. I like how we learn that he once did have a family, but that's not the case anymore. I think both movies tell a compelling and engaging story. I like how we see, well, one of the big reasons Columbus is able to survive is because he didn't really have any connections. He didn't really have very many other people in his life. So I think it's pretty obvious that Zombieland is just more consistent. I like how at the beginning of the second movie, Columbus in narration is saying, "Hey, we know you have so many other options, so thank you for coming to see our movie." And it's pretty fun also seeing Bill Murray in the first film. You know, all the references to Elvis Presley in the sequel. That'll wrap things up for this video.